Thanks so much for tuning in to the Sustainable Brown Girl YouTube channel. This show exists to provide representation for women of color within the environmental space, to share their stories, and to inspire all to be more eco-friendly every day. I'm your host, Ariel Green. This is where you can see all of the full video podcast episodes. So be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Also, go follow us on Instagram at Sustainable Brown Girl. Enjoy! Today's featured Sustainable Brown Girl is Amyrose Foll, a farmer, activist, and food justice warrior. Amyrose is the founder of Virginia Free Farm, which works to provide free, nutrient-dense food assistance to those in need. We're going to be talking to Amyrose about all of the exciting things she has coming up this year. And so, let's just get into it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amyrose.
Thank you, Wuini. Thank you, and Abenaki Stiluist.
Yes, I love it. So, hey, let's just start there. Tell me about your background, your native history, and how you became interested in farming.
So there's so many reasons why for me. So food was used historically as a weapon of war to exterminate my ancestors. But food is also the great cross-cultural unifier for all cultures. And so I've decided to kind of put that aside and not be stuck in that trauma porn that is really expected of a lot of us and that emotional labor that goes along with it. And instead of holding on to those traumas, to really use it for good to improve the fabric of my community. Not for me, because I know that I'm not going to see the fruits of my labor probably in my lifetime. But if I can change things for my children or my grandchildren or my friends' children to make our world a better place, that's really that's my why.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can agree with you when you say that you're not going to see the fruits of your labor. Like, just looking through your website, you help so many families and communities and, just people survive. Like, that alone, that's a huge difference you're making.
Yeah, we started before the pandemic, actually. And then when the pandemic hit, we went from, I think statistically on the USDA website, the food insecurity rate was between 10 and 13% for households. And during the pandemic, it was almost 50%. And so
Wow.
we saw a lot of holes in the system. We have a large community of undocumented families here in this area. And unfortunately, I know this is not across the board, but in my region, you had to register with the Department of Social Services to be able to go to the county food banks in the surrounding counties here. And so that was absolutely unacceptable to me. A lot of these people's children go to school with my kids. They are integral parts of the workforce. Not okay with me. So we ripped another garden and produced thousands and thousands more pounds of food to meet those needs. Wow. Another hole that we found was our refugee families. We have resettled refugee families in this area. And even if they're here in the middle of their immigration paperwork, there was a problem with that because if they were married to an American citizen or they were somewhere in the middle of their immigration, they weren't eligible for the stimulus checks that we all got. And it being in a mixed status household, even if you were married to an American citizen, neither one of you would get it. And there was also problems with applying for different types of assistance that would derail their immigration paperwork. So we stepped up to the task and started supplying that community with the help of organizers. I don't do any of this alone. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without an army of amazing volunteers and my co-conspirators and collaborators of other nonprofits and organizations in the area to really get the food, meet the logistical needs. Because when I started this many years ago, I was not doing it wisely. I was trying to do everything myself, and no one works harder than a woman that doesn't like asking for help. So I made myself a little crazy. It was so hard. So I made myself a little crazy the first year, and then I got smart. And then I reached out. And not only in reaching out did I discover there was a ton of people from across the community that wanted to help, enthusiastically wanted to help. And but those needs would be met. And then I ended up getting other people reaching out and donating. We had Holly Haven Farm, that's run by an Afro-Indigenous couple that donated 3 head of cattle. Yeah, we had so many people. Heliocanthus Farm donated all of their leftover produce from their CSAs. We had lending hands, reaching out, wanting us to work with the ladies getting out of the Department of Corrections to teach skills. And gardening is therapy. And not only were they able to feed themselves, but we were able to help prevent recidivism by engaging in that work. And then we started working with the McShin Foundation, which is a network of, I think it's 13 houses in total, but they have land attached to those houses where people go through intensive inpatient rehab services. And in that, they're able to receive livestock donations from us and mother something other than themselves, learn skills, get great nutrition that's good for your mind and your body. And, it was just overall holistic well-being from those folks. They not only fed themselves, but they actually were able to get some of their excess produce into the community and kind of keep it going. It's been really beautiful, really
Yes.
beautiful.
Wow. Yes, sounds like it. And it's great to see so many different organizations and people come together to make a difference on a wider scale, because like you said, you can only do so much by yourself. It really takes a community of people to really make a difference.
Yeah, and the thing is, we don't just provide nutritional support top down because that doesn't work for anybody. That doesn't solve any
Hmm.
problems.
Hmm.
So what we do is we actually equip all of our families and organizations not only with nutritional support, but with the education, resources, if they need tools, hosing, things like that, plants and seeds and support with volunteers to help them successfully grow. And during 2020, actually by July of 2020, all of our individual families and many of our community organizations that we work with were able to, they didn't need us anymore for their weekly donations of actual food goods. They were producing more than they needed and basically told us to stop, move on, which was amazing.
Incredible. Yeah. Wow. So, what has been your experience with helping people learn how to grow? Because I have a couple of raised beds at a community garden. I try to grow things out on my balcony, and when I talk to people about gardening, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't have a green thumb, or I don't have the space, or whatever." So, what? How do you get people like more involved with that if they feel like they have limitations?
Oh, so we actually have a number of ways that we do that. We're working with Agribility, and one of our offshoot nonprofit farms is growing inclusivity. And so what we're doing with them is basically we're working with food students or food system students, engineering students, that is Agribility, to create adaptive tools if they have mobility problems or disabilities. We are helping with volunteers. I mean, we work with the Richmond Indigenous Society, which is basically it's an organization started by my elder Vanessa Bolin in Richmond City proper, in Northside. So we've created this like little oasis in the heart of Richmond, and she feeds the community of Northside, but she can't do it alone because none of us can do it alone.
Right.
And for her, it was labor that was a limiting factor. And so we mobilized the troops, so to say, and it was so beautiful. We would have a whole van full of students from Virginia Tech out there helping. We had we had a Lenape elder, a Chata kid. We had students from the Congo that were here at Virginia Tech getting their PhD. So many people.
Wow.
And we would hit that garden, jump back in the van, go to the MLK Urban Agriculture Center, hit that garden, and just kind of keep it going. And people were so excited to
Mhm.
help. I just had one of those students actually that's transferring to VSU reach out to me because they're going to be here on the 13th of March wanting to help. So we don't ever leave anyone out on an island by themselves because, you know, you think about it like your hair, I guess. If you pull one strand, it's really weak. But if you braid your hair together,
Mm-hmm.
it's strong and it doesn't break. And that's really
Right.
what we're trying to foster is community and empowering folks through knowledge and education and assistance and so many of those things. We don't ever leave anyone out to dry or on their own. And we want people to feel a sense of community and a sense of family because, you know, I guess it's kind of, I'm going to sound cliche and cheesy in saying this, but it's,
Uh-huh.
so traditionally, our farmers were women from our tribes, at least in the Northeast. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that all Native people are a monolith. We're all so different, and like, I think what is there now? 575 recognized tribes, and then I don't even know how many recognized state tribes. But we're all so different. We all have different cultures and customs. But a lot of the farmers were always women, and it was a lot of us also have a culture of sharing and community. And that culture of sharing and community were what kept the colonists from starving to death. And I guess in a way, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
cheesy part, I feel like I'm kind of keeping that custom of generosity and sharing alive that belonged to my many great grandmothers past that like helped birth this nation in a way that was
Yes.
destructive for us, but at the same time, look what it's led to and look at how many beautiful people live in this country now. There are so many people that are willing to do good and want to make a better world. So we're just rounding them all up.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, you definitely are keeping the, the tradition going.
I'm
So that's
trying.
awesome. That's Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. So when you're helping people, like grow things, it sounded like it's typically like in a community garden type thing, or do you help people like at their homes too?
So we do individual families too. All of our individual families actually don't need us anymore, which is a wonderful thing. But yeah, we do
Yeah.
work with anybody, individuals, families, organizations, schools. Schools are really important, especially because everything that's going on with the climate crisis right now is
Mm-hmm.
it's beyond me that people even still deny it. Absolutely crazy. But children that are
Right.
exposed to nature and gardening at an early age are statistically more environmentally conscious adults when they grow up.
Hmm.
And so that's really important for me because, you know, the land was our home originally. And I mean, it still is our home. We like, no matter what kind of city or conurbation or apartment building you live in, we all as human beings evolved in nature and we really
Yeah.
can't be extricated from it when it really gets down to it. So making sure that kids are educated, that's really really important to me too, and that kids are involved in growing their own food. Like Project Black that I'm starting with my sister from the Women's Earth Alliance. So Lavisha and I have been trying to hatch this crazy plan, a number of crazy plans. We have more in the works, but Lavisha is the founder of C5, and we were both in the 2020 accelerator for Women's Earth Alliance. And they're
Hmm.
women from all over the place. I mean, we had girls from Guam in our cohort, but we just happened to
Wow.
live close to each other. So we just decided to have lunch one day. And we had talked a lot and started co-conspiring on this project because she was really annoyed with the fact that like her great grandparents and her grandmother had land and they farmed, but she had been divorced from the land and
Mm.
wanted that back. She wanted that legacy back. I mean, in World War II, 40% of Virginia's farmers were black. And there was this great land grab on the East Coast from black farmers and native folks. And we didn't have anything left. I mean, she's Afro-Indigenous. She's actually Chickahominy and African American, and she wanted that back. And she knew that I was working with local universities and the USDA and now the Smithsonian to really get our plant matter back. And
Hmm.
she was not enrolled in her tribe. She wasn't connected to the land through farming from the African American side of her family. And so we hatched this crazy plan to get the youth. I want to say, when I say youth, I mean like 20s and 30 somethings, getting out of high
Okay.
school and in young adulthood, not really knowing what they're doing, not wanting to take on a lot of debt, wanting a reconnection. So we ended up working together to craft this agricultural internship for through C5 and Project Black, with Virginia Free Farm running the ag part of it. And I rounded up some sponsors. We got Atlantic Building Constructors involved, and we're creating a program. We're actually going tomorrow to map everything out on site. We've got 100 acres, an old school that's been decommissioned, but is structurally sound. And we are doing internship projects for ag, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, carpentry, masonry, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. But we got the community involved, and we're going to be providing free job training for all these folks. We're going to build a
Wow.
black Main Street on the premises with a farm, a hostel, and a retreat center, so that once these folks go through our apprenticeship programs, that they have jobs secured. They can either start their business there on the premises
Mm-hmm.
with the hostel and
Mm-hmm.
retreat center, which will generate income and keep the project going beyond the few years we got funding for, and keep those youth here that are valuable, keep them connected to the land, keep them working, give them pride in Charles City County and themselves, and not have to be burdened with crazy debt. I mean, Lavisha is saddled with student loan debt. I was lucky and I didn't have very much, but that was because I joined the Army, because I didn't have money. My
Mm-hmm.
family didn't come from money. Native folks serve at 10 to 15% in the armed forces, generally because of
Wow.
poverty. Poverty is a great recruiter for the military. I didn't want to do that, you know,
Yeah.
but to
Mm-hmm.
have a future, that was what I needed to do. And, you just got to do what you got to do. And I don't want anyone else to have to feel like that. And Lavisha
Yeah.
doesn't want anybody else to have to incur $100,000 in student debt, because, I mean, she's got a master's in green architecture. So that was what she needed to
Wow.
do. So
Yeah.
basically, we're trying to take all the things we learned and create a system that's better for people in the future, so they don't have to go through that stuff that we had to go through.
Exactly. Wow. Oh my gosh, that is so freaking exciting. You said 100 acres?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100 acres. And it's a
Wow.
purchase, not a lease.
Wow, congratulations. That is huge. You are
Yeah.
going to help so many people like with their future careers and learning about, agriculture and developing skills that, they can go and help other people. That's so exciting.
Yeah, right now I think we have like 0.01% native growers and 1.3%
Wow.
black growers. The food system is
Right.
so messed up, and like the power dynamics are so messed up here. So we're going to try to change it. We're going to work from the inside out to change that.
Yeah. So is your goal just to be working with Native and Black and I guess people of color?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to be trying to do. And I'm
Mhm.
hoping that we can get with the Department of Labor to provide stipends for the students actually going through the program to be able to be
Yeah.
paid themselves just for doing the training. I think that's to make it really sustainable, and I want to remove all the barriers, because people have kids, they have side jobs, they have a million other things going on. Sometimes they have lack of
Mhm.
transportation, and if we can get somebody $8 or $10,000, it could buy that used car that could get them to school all the time, or allow them to be
Mhm.
able to have childcare, to be able to go to school and make things. We want to remove all of those barriers that have been put in place purposely by legislation, by the powers that be, by racism in our class structure and our jobs and our education. Yeah, we just want to turn it around. They say that there are, I think it's 250 years between Black families and white families' wealth gap, and something
Mhm.
similar for Native and Latinx people. Why should we let the Titanic turn itself when we can hire a tugboat to turn that thing around tomorrow?
Preach. Yes, exactly.
Because, like Lavisha and I were talking about it the other day. A lot of people talk. Talk doesn't get you anywhere. Talk doesn't change
Mhm.
anything. It doesn't create real hope. Real hope in action is because theory. Okay, so I guess what I want to say is like theory doesn't do anything without direct action. Talk is cheap.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to talk and get a platform and be talking about it, but they don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to do the hard work or be the boots on the ground. But hope in action is created by those people that are boots on the ground doing the hard work. It sucks. You see on the news water protectors and land defenders getting beaten by police and arrested and everything like that, assaulted. But some of them are still here. We're still here, just like Native people. We're still here. We're not an invisible thing or like somewhere living in your memory and textbooks and beads and buckskin. We are still very much still here. And
Yes.
even if there's one person still here doing the work, that's hope in action. And that inspires people. If you can inspire people by hope in action and being that example, it might, if we can inspire just one more person to do the work, we're doing something. We're leaving a legacy. And that's really what we want to do, is to inspire more people to do this work. We know that we can't get anywhere alone on an island, but I mean, just today we were able to talk to the owner of one of the biggest construction companies in the state of Virginia, and he basically was like, yes, we're going to do this. We'll help you. We'll pay for upgrades to the building, and we'll provide you instructions for your instructors for your building trades. That's hope in action. And all you have to do is just stand up there and be willing to put yourself out there.
Yes, exactly. Wow. That is so incredible. Oh my gosh. So when is everything supposed to be starting? Like when do classes start and all that?
We're actually hoping to start next month.
What?
Yeah, Lavisha talked to the folks, like lawyers were going back and forth and negotiating the contract. Lavisha made everything happen with that. I was just originally doing the ag part, and then today the opportunity arose to get actually a friend of mine from the Army from like 20 years ago that happens to work with Atlantic instructors. We happened to be on the phone, and I was talking to him about Project Black, and he's like, wait, the owner's sitting next to me. You're really hard to get a hold of. I'm handing him the phone. And it just happened. So,
Wow.
we're lucky, I guess. Not necessarily lucky, but smart. And opportunities arise, and we take advantage of those opportunities. Because originally, this started out as we wanted to do a green tiny house community in Petersburg with a food forest interplanted, with wraparound services for folks in that area, that because it's a really profound high poverty rate area. Wraparound services for education, job training, transportation, mental health care, physical health care, child care, all of that, to really pull that area out of poverty, the same way that, the Titanic kind of metaphor that I used. But we were having a really hard time getting legislators to buy into our plans, even though Lavisha already had all the sketches and drawings done. And if you were to hire an architectural engineer like her, you'd be paying tens of thousands of dollars. We were really willing to put ourselves out there to do the work and to organize and get community buy-in. We were having a hard time. It's not really a surprise because, the laws that set up the system we all live in are not going to dismantle themselves. We need to get inside and kill it from within, So we did it. It took a couple years longer than we expected, and it wasn't exactly how we originally envisioned, but it's a start, and we're getting there.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I just can't even. So you have Virginia Free Farm, you have Project Black. Is there anything else that you're working on? I mean, you're already pretty busy. Like I
Oh
feel
my
bad
gosh,
just asking that.
oh my gosh, so many amazing things. One of my favorite actually is not even run by me, because I like to, I don't know, we have these crazy ideas. I shouldn't say crazy. I feel like that's maybe a little bit self-deprecating. But a couple years ago, one of our board members was like, hey, I was reading about this free fridge program. And I don't even remember where it was. Let's start it. So that same person I talked to today that happens to work at Atlantic Constructors, I was talking to him, and he offered to throw down one refrigerator a month for an entire year if we could get it going, right? So I
Okay.
was actually on Instagram and I just searched hashtag community fridge or free fridge or something. And I met this amazing young woman, Taylor Scott from Richmond. She had just graduated from VCU. She was working at a COVID lab at night, third shift. I messaged her. She had a page put up for RVA community fridges, but they hadn't like launched any fridges yet. And I got a farm. I got people willing to donate refrigerators. She wants to do it. I hit her up on Instagram. 15 minutes later, we were on the phone, and she is like amazing. She's doing so well. And it's like, not only were we filling the refrigerator from the community gardens that we steward with all of these volunteers and
Mm-hmm.
our food from our fridges, but she made it such a good program. Basically, we just like took the fridge donations and passed it off to her. She's running the program and is the founder of RVA Community Fridges. But she has like total community buy-in from
Yeah.
everyone in the neighborhood of these fridges. And the great thing about it is she's providing school supplies to kids in need. She's providing little free pantries with the refrigerators, meat, vegetables, bread. She's gotten bakeries in the area to, instead of throwing away their bread at the end of the day, it goes into the community fridges. And the great thing about that is everyone deserves the dignity of a good meal. You know, I really think,
Yes.
I really believe that food is a human right.
Mm-hmm.
And we all evolved in these tribal communities to take care of each other for a purpose. It was survival and it benefited everyone. It drew us together in family and clans, no matter where you come from, whether your family is from Mongolia or Ireland or North America. We were all a tribal people at once, but we've forgotten who we are. She has literally, her name's Taylor Scott, by the way, so look her up if you're listening to this. So she has created all of these little tribes in these areas, and people in the neighborhood can go to these community fridges in dignity, anonymously, get whatever they need and get it to go. And having the ability to create access to free, fresh food and healthy food
Mm-hmm.
is really important, especially because, like, you know, the Black community and the Native community and the Latinx community, they're among the highest for disease rates, diabetes, high blood pressure, coronary artery
Mm-hmm.
disease, because we live in these areas with no grocery stores and no access to good quality food. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, we've been sitting around for, no, like, that's, sorry, I misspoke saying we've been sitting around. People have not been sitting around. Organizing has been going on for more than a century, but it's gone on far too long without meaningful, really impactful change in our neighborhoods and our communities. So she did the thing, and people are able to go out and get fresh food in areas where there are no grocery stores. And it's beautiful. We started the MLK Urban Agriculture Center last year on acreage that the Richmond Public School District didn't even know that they had, which is
Oh
shocking.
no.
Well, I know, and it's
Wow.
in a, like, it's situated right in the middle of a housing project with 80% poverty rate, 15% profound poverty rate, and no grocery store for several miles. And think about, like, I have kids. They're older now, so they're pains in the butt in different ways than younger children are. And I can't imagine, like, the only place you can go says, like, beer, lotto tickets, fried chicken, 40s, and EBT. But there's no fresh food in there.
Mm-hmm.
So Taylor's got a
Mm-hmm.
community fridge there, and we set up a garden with 4 tracks. We've got a Mesoamerican garden, an Africulture garden, a Native garden, and a Caribbean garden to reflect the community. So it's culturally appropriate food right in the middle of this housing
Wow.
district or housing complex, and folks can walk over. And, like, I don't know about you, but if you've got a young child and you don't have access to a grocery store and you have to take public transportation miles away to lug 40 pounds of groceries
Mm-hmm.
home when your 2.5-year-old may or may not throw a fit and refuse to walk or some other such thing, that's not sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not good for the mental well-being of those moms in those neighborhoods at all. And, there's programs in every state. Our state has Virginia Fresh Match. So women on SNAP can go get double their food dollars at the farmer's market. But the problem with that also is those farmers markets are in affluent communities, generally on Saturday
Yep.
mornings. They're
Yep.
not accessible. The women are working on Saturday mornings. So that was another thing we
Mm-hmm.
did when I started really assessing the things that we could change practically in our community here.
Mm-hmm.
We ripped another garden in the front 2 acres of our farm and got in touch with the Rotary Club. And you're like, those are just a bunch of old dudes that have nothing better to do. They're retired. And so we got a mobile reader from the USDA and got approved to accept SNAP. So those women can actually just email me, call me, what have you, text me orders. We will pick, pack fresh produce for them right there on the spot. So it's literally coming right out of the ground onto their children's plates.
Wow.
The Rotary guys will come pick it up and deliver it to their doorstep so they don't even have to interrupt their lives.
Oh my gosh. That's like, I'm getting chills, like, seriously. That is so beneficial. Like that, like I said earlier, you are changing lives. Like, it's crazy. It's not, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I'm
it didn't
very
sit well
impressed.
for me. Like, I don't know. The reserve system, my family's from Quebec, so we have reserves instead of
Uh-huh.
reservations, but it's the same. You
Uh-huh.
can't own
Yeah.
anything. There's no intergenerational
Hmm.
wealth because you can't own a house to pass it on to your kids to create that intergenerational wealth. There's lack of jobs, opportunity, things like that. And I started really thinking about the programs that are available to help. I'm going to say that in air quotes. And I don't
Yeah.
mean to say that. And like, I don't think legislators and policymakers and the people that are creating these programs are sitting around twirling their mustache and wringing their hands going, I know what I'll do. I'll create this program that's not really useful, or
Yeah.
accessible.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, I think they're well meaning, but they can't put themselves in our shoes.
Hmm.
So the architecture of the programs don't really necessarily serve everyone. And that's really kind of like the impetus for that, and also the impetus for what Lavisha and I are trying to do, and finally starting this year with Project Black, because we've both been in crummy situations, and we had a really long conversation about how these programs don't serve us. So we need to create our own
Hmm.
programs to appropriately serve the community in ways that preserves dignity and empowers people and isn't the whole host of hoops you have to jump through and condescension you have to deal with sometimes at social services or what have you. So we took it upon ourselves to change that. It took some doing, but
Yes.
we made it happen finally.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. You are a woman who is just on it. So, how, every community needs someone like you. And, how would you tell someone who's interested in maybe, being a pillar in their community like you to, like, how would you tell them to get started? What advice would you give them?
Oh my gosh. So it's actually not as hard as it sounds. Like, I know it sounds like I'm doing
Yeah.
all of these things. It's actually
Hmm.
really easy, and it sounds silly, but I actually use Calendly to organize everything and get everyone on track.
Okay.
Calendly and the Google Drive, so easy to keep people organized that way. And if they have questions about logistics or how things work, they can just email me or go to the Virginia Free Farm website and fill out the contact form, because I would be so happy to see this replicated all across the country, because what we do is
Right.
essentially really easy and it can be replicated anywhere. Um, I mean, we even our tribal gardens that we're doing, one of the things that we have problems with here and that Lavisha and I have talked in depth about is there's been an alienation of the Afro-Indigenous family members in tribal, like, council government enrollment. And so we're working to heal that too. We started setting up these tribal gardens, and we're adding 2 more tribal gardens this year for federally recognized tribes here. But we
Mhm.
noticed, and she actually experienced this with her tribe, there's not as much engagement or acceptance of the Afro-Indigenous community. That doesn't sit right with me
Yeah.
because we're all family. If you have even a drop of Indigenous blood in your body, you're our kin. And
Mm-hmm.
we can't be whole as a family until all of our family members are brought in. So we had, at the Rappahannock Garden, the Rappahannock tribe is super accepting of everyone. And we had conversations about that, and with a girl, Pamunkey girl that lives here that is also Afro-Indigenous, and she was distressed because she wanted that part of her heritage, because she wanted to pass it on to her kids too. And so we actually
Right.
organized community garden days with those folks in the area that felt alienated or felt like they wouldn't be accepted with the Rappahannock, because the Rappahannock tribe is rad. And so we had like Nansemond folks that were Afro-Indigenous that were not being engaged properly and not getting that sense of community. And so we started organizing all of these things, but it's really, really easy. And if anyone wants to do the same thing, just reach out to me. I would be more than happy to share, because it's so important. And it's so important to create that unity and community for our kids and keep spreading
Yeah.
the love. That sounds so cheesy, but food is
No, I
love.
love
Food is
it.
the love language of my grandmothers. And I want to share that
Yeah.
love with everybody.
Yes, yes. And just to touch back on one of the things that you mentioned earlier about land. So, how I think that's a really big barrier too. So, how did you go about getting the land and the neighborhood that you were telling us about, and then also the land for Project Black? Like, can you offer
Oh
tips on
God, this is
securing
a
land?
loaded question. Do you really want to know?
Of
Um,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna take a drink of this really quick. Sorry, I
Okay, go
need some tea.
please.
I've been like talking
Yeah,
nonstop because I get so crazy and on my soapbox about these things because it matters so much to me.
it
Um,
does.
okay, all right. So there was a number of different ways, which may or may not be frowned upon. So,
Okay.
so like the MLK Urban Agriculture Center. I was driving around there, and it was after Taylor Scott had gotten her first fridge at Pomona Plants, which is now Pomona's actually closed and it's something else, but it's in the neighborhood of MLK or Elementary, and behind it, so it's the worst performing school in Virginia, and it had 7.5 acres or 7.8 acres behind it that had football fields and bathrooms and baseball diamonds, and then beautiful big fields that were flat, so perfect for growing, all
Mhm.
sun.
Mhm.
Um, and they hadn't done anything with it in 6 years. So,
Mhm.
and they weren't really being responsive at city council meetings or school board meetings. So we basically used a tree service to start dropping chips, and I reached out to my friend Bryce, whose family had gone to VSU, which is a HBCU here in Virginia that's a land grant university that focuses on ag. Um, he's actually the one that's going to meet me in a couple days down there, and his family's Caribbean, so we wanted to do a Caribbean garden. We got one of my girlfriends that is from Central America to steward the Mesoamerican garden. I'm doing the native garden, which is the only thing that I have a right to do. And then we got the RVA Gardening Club Odyssey to start with the Africulture garden, so that there was representation in the community. And we just did it, like guerrilla gardening, just did it. It was a little risky, but we did it and it was beautiful. And then we had the students from Native at Virginia Tech coming out once in a while to help volunteer for maintenance and planting. We had woofers come out. And then I walked around the grounds with a couple of school board members, because at that point in
Uh-huh.
time, we had improved the ground. It was doing something good for the community, and they had to bear witness to what they were too afraid to do. And they had to
Mhm.
either give me an MOU that I could be there as long as I held the insurance on it, because insurance for a community
Okay.
garden was really reasonable. I think it was like $100 a year. Totally worth it, you know?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
think of the groceries that you could buy for $100 a year versus what we put out. Um,
Right.
so at that point in time, I had them cornered, because she would have been the bad guy if she wouldn't have
Uh-huh.
acquiesced to our request to be able to be there. So last August, we had the I Have a Dream Festival for Martin Luther King,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
had the whole community come out and had hot dogs and all sorts of stuff, or which is a reentry program, doing outreach and raffling off bicycles for kids in the area, and people could see the garden. And then, so that was one. Then there's Community Roots Garden, that is the Richmond Indigenous Society. And so that's had a lot of, it got notice of VCU, which is our big main college in Richmond. And they've been doing some classes out there. My elder, Vanessa Bolin, had this dream. Where are you located? Are you in the Southeast?
Atlanta, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you know what kudzu is then, right?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh. It's this, it's an invasive species from Asia that has like eaten the South in many rural areas.
Okay.
And so crazy. So if you Google kudzu, Kudzu, it's shocking, the pictures that will come up. So there was a kudzu area that was like taking over some, like an abandoned city lot, but it was pretty good sized abandoned city lot behind her house. And so she rallied up a bunch of college students in the area during the protests. She was acting as a street medic to make sure that the protesters were safe. She, you know, had contact with a lot of people. Then she started teaching street medic classes to be able to further empower the community to make sure that those protesters were protected and safe and looked out for and taken care of. And then she got a lot of people to buy into the food justice movement that she had envisioned behind her house, but it was all overgrown with kudzu. And it's really hard to eradicate too, which is why it's so invasive. She got all of these college kids and people in the neighborhood to rip out all that kudzu. We got mulching done, garden done, compost beds done, and now this is going into the third season. Huge amounts of produce come out of that garden. There's chickens back there. We preserve very rare native cultivars and then pass them out to other tribal members to save them from extinction, because of a lot of our foods. I mean, like, you know, you go to the grocery store, you got maybe 30 different kinds of vegetables across the country, pretty uniform, right? There's so much more to native food than just that. So we got that going. And then I had Virginia Public Media come in and interview me there with Chief Ann from the Rappahannock, who is the longest and first serving female hereditary chief in Virginia.
Wow.
And so that got us state attention. Then we brought in the city. So we cornered them the same way because there was nothing there. I mean, we cleaned up broken bricks and glass and I don't know, I think 27 baseballs that were, some of them probably from the Korean War back there, cleaned up the community. And the community goes and they can go there and they can garden and they can get whatever they want for free whenever they want to. And the beautiful thing is, like, I've been there with volunteers and there's like 80-year-old men and like 8-year-old children, not related. Yeah. Some of them are white, some of them are native, some of them are black, all interacting and all volunteering together. And the good thing is that intergenerational transfer of knowledge that used to be customary to Afro people or African people and indigenous people, you know, and in the Latinx community too. But that used to be our traditional transfer of knowledge. And now it's like across demographics and across generations in this area of Richmond. And you know, and another thing we wanted to do, you know, the MLK Urban Agriculture Garden, that's in like the highest crime area of Richmond. There was like someone murdered outside my garden a couple of weeks before I had a group of Virginia Tech students coming. And but when we get all of these community members together, like different generations working together, it's a lot harder to do violence against someone when you know their grandma or you know their mom or their niece is out there digging in the dirt with you. And we don't, like, a lot of people don't know their neighbors in modern day America. You know what I mean? A lot of people, especially during the pandemic, people don't go outside. But so we created these areas where people can go outside, get healthy, transfer knowledge, learn about each other, get comfortable with each other, and hopefully that'll help mend the community too. There's so many aspects of it, because if you just donate food, like a food pantry, and I'm not knocking food pantries, if you just donate food, that's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Not going to change anything. They have to be grassroots movements from the bottom up and top down at the same time. And you need to take care of everyone's needs, because food is medicine. There's another cliche coming out of me today, but food is medicine. And in traditional Native culture, you don't sell medicine. Obviously, that's not the culture we grow up in, but if
Yeah.
we can get some of it out there or empower people through education and learning to be able to provide their own food, save seeds, grow food, pass it on to their neighbors in kindness, we can create like an example of an alternative system that works, that people can see working in action, to be able to check out of that system. Because right now, as it is, we're nothing more than hamsters on a wheel, traded from big
Mm-hmm.
ag to big pharma. They keep us sick to line the rich
Yep.
people's pockets. Maybe that's
Yep.
oversimplification of it. But unless we do something for ourselves, like the master's tools are never going to dismantle the master's house. That's just the way we
Right.
live. Um,
Right.
so we're trying it. Project Black was legit
Yes.
though. That's like a LEAP grant that Lavisha wrote and
Okay.
got, and and that's like we weren't guerrilla gardening and forcing city
Yeah.
officials or school board members to bend to our will. But a lot of times you have to do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
by any means
It's an effective
necessary. I mean,
method. Right.
we weren't busting
Yeah.
kneecaps or anything like that, but we were creating beautiful examples of what could be
Exactly.
for people that were either too busy or unwilling to do it themselves, or didn't have the visioning or forward thinking to do it for themselves, or didn't care enough about the community. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like with the MLK Urban Agriculture Center, there was very much like a few years of Rick from the Pocahontas Project trying to push them, the school board in the city, to get movement on doing it, traditional means, asking. What do
Mm-hmm.
they say about asking?
Mm-hmm.
Do first, ask forgiveness later. Um, so he was trying to do it the right way, but it wasn't working. And somebody needed to do something about it, and you just had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, here you are. That's awesome. Yeah, wow. So, yeah, that's a method. Guerrilla gardening. Find a little plot in your neighborhood that has been abandoned and just, make it your own if you can.
Yeah,
Do it safely. But yes, yes.
yeah.
That
Yeah, and the
works. I
seeds that are
like it.
saved, like, so it doesn't
Uh-huh.
just benefit our community. The seeds that are saved from all of these gardens and our main farm, I live on the main farm. So the seeds that are
Hmm.
saved from all of these projects actually go across the country, from Essential Food and Medicine in Oakland, California, to El Departamento de la Comida in Puerto Rico, and all over the
Wow.
place. Gila River Reservation to Tuscarora Reservation in New York, all over the place, freely,
Wow.
so that and we recently started sending things to Well Blessings in Houston, all over the place, to grow free
Wow.
food. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure whether they're doing the same things we're doing, but it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm a fat kid at heart. I love food. And anybody that wants seeds or wants education for growing, reach out to me, because I will give you everything that you need and help you with the organization of replicating this, because it's so
Yes.
doable. It's so easy. There's a guy,
Mm.
he's living in Maryland right now, but he's from Liberia, and he contacted me recently. And what he wants to do is learn what we're doing here in Virginia and take that back with him when he goes back to Liberia, and create a Virginia Free Farm in Liberia to feed his community, because he saw the
Wow.
powerful transformation that could be capable here.
Yeah, right. Wow, look at you inspiring people. And I know some people listening will also be inspired. So thank you so much for making yourself available to people for education and advice. Like, that's invaluable. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. I
No, it's
really
okay.
appreciate you coming on today.
You
Yeah,
probably
thank
have
you
to cut me
so
off,
much.
because I am one of those people that will like get on my soapbox about food apartheid and food sovereignty and food justice. And if you let me go, I will go for hours. I got something
Yes,
to
I
say.
love it. Yes, I love it. I love it. We need to hear what you're saying, and thank you again so much for sharing your thoughts and and your knowledge and everything. So, my last question for you is, what does being a sustainable brown girl mean to you?
Empowering others, I guess. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
heart work. It's not like, this is not a career for me or a personal endeavor. It's heart work. I guess
Mm,
so. And to create a community that can take care of itself. Um, because
yes.
our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers, they've passed on this legacy to us. And even in the seeds that we plant, those are gifts from our grandmothers, to give to our children and our children's children and share with our sisters. And that's the most important thing that we can do. That's what we're here for.
Yes, yes, well said. I love it. You are definitely making history, whether you think you are or not. It's incredible. It's inspiring. And I just know that you're doing amazing things for your community and like the world pretty much, So, yes, thank you so much. And tell everybody where they can find you, how they can support your work and all that.
So you can find us at virginiafreefarm.org or at Virginia Free Farm with on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, just check it out. Volunteer.
Yes, yes,
Trade seeds with
yes.
us.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Amyrose. It's been such a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. Kitsi Wimini.
Don't leave just yet. Click here to hear from another Sustainable Brown Girl, or click here to watch the full playlist from this season.